I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we'll be seated. Approval of the minutes. You all received copies of the last meeting's minutes via email. Any additions or corrections? Seeing none, they'll stand approved as presented. Approval of the current financial report. You received a copy from the auditor's office. Any questions, or I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
Motion, Mrs. Howdeshell, to adopt or approve the current financial report from the auditor's office. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Wright?
Yes.
Godwin?
Yes.
Hensley?
Yes.
Howdeshell?
Yes.
Rogers? Yes. Whitaker?
Yes.
Approval of the agenda. I have nothing to add or subtract at this time, but just a note. If you printed off the description of the legislation, that is the summary, the clerk informed me that it has changed, and the new one is printed on the back of the agendas that were presented out tonight. So I had printed mine earlier, so I have two of them now. Just a note of perfunctory type things for you.
Move to accept the agenda as presented.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to accept the agenda as presented. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Wright?
Yes.
Godwin?
Yes.
Hensley?
Yes.
Howdeshell?
Yes.
Rogers?
Yes.
Whitaker?
Yes.
Public hearing. We have nothing scheduled for this evening. Anyone wishing to address council may do so at this time. Please come up and give your name and address. State your case. Seeing no one moving forward, we will move the agenda. For administrative reports, Mayor Wellman.
Thank you. I have a few things. Definitely, I think Kurt's going to follow up a little bit with this, but we have a big event sort of over the last weekend with cleanup of some of the bike trail walking paths with the help of the city street department a little bit, and some people in the community, particularly some of the kids of the majority that participate in the majority walk. We are the majority, Kelly Harrison, and several other people, Halem Knapke, that cleaned up down around the bridge and did some landscaping. And they also had some crews doing some cleaned up around the signs coming into town on 36 and I can't remember the other one. 49. So anyway, I think he'll elaborate on that a little bit more. But the one thing that's coming up is the majority walk. We are the majority that walk down Broadway. That is going to be April 22nd. And that's coming up, it's the Monday after Easter. So it's coming up this Monday, yeah. So they start at the statue of Annie Oakley. At the end of Broadway, they walk down Broadway to the city building, and that starts at 10 o'clock. And they have like a little rally outside in front of the city building. Quite a few of the students that come from different areas around the county. So there's several schools that are involved. The kids will participate in giving talks and talk about not doing drugs and such. So it's a great day. They're going to be, the fire department will be cooking hot dogs. There'll be some drinks, and the speaker system will be set up. So it's really a wonderful day, and it's good to see all the kids out to participate in that. So if you get there, that'd be great. On May 2nd, noon to 12:45, will be the National Day of Prayer. We've had that every year. This is like the 68th annual National Day of Prayer. It'll be held, we've always tried to do it in front of the city building, and we've gotten rained out like 3 years in a row. So instead of doing that, we're going to go ahead and it'll be at the First United Methodist Church at 202 West 4th Street. and it'll start at noon. A lot of your local and state representatives will be there, and they'll be participating in that. I think Warren Davison will start it out. So it's a great event. Doesn't take too much time, but it's great to see everybody there. Makes a good day. So if you get a chance, stop by. And that's it. I'll pass.
Okay, thank you, sir. Safety Service Director, Mr. Garrison.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Follow up on what Mayor Woolman was explaining. Friday and Saturday was recognized as the Global Day of Service. Kelly Harrison, who works for Dark County Recovery and Wellness, she is employed and tasked with, I will call it the opportunity to work with teens through We Are the Majority program. And Kelly applied for a grant not too long ago, and she received that grant, and that grant was in the amount of $1,000. And that's what really, once she received notification of the grant award, spearheaded bringing different folks in our community together to perform service on Friday afternoon and then again on Saturday afternoon. And Greenville was fortunate enough to receive most of the help from that organization around different places in the community, as well as a majority of the grant dollars. And then a thank you goes out to Sharon DeChambeau, who is the head of the Dark County Coalition for a Healthy Dark County. She matched the grant from the state with another $1,000. And with their grant, they were able to purchase 3 solar-powered lights of 2 different types. 2 of the lights were what we call an acorn style, which is similar to what we have out in front of the city building, where you have a post and you have some sort of a lantern on top. We refer to those as acorns. And 2 of those were placed at 4th Street as you enter the trail to go back in behind Terrace Creek. And we wanted to be able to light that area up. And the neat thing about those lights is that they are solar powered, so we did not have to do underground or any kind of an electric service to feed those lights. And then at the other end, which exits out onto what we commonly refer to as the Bish Park or the Bish entryway, there's a canoe or a kayak launch in that location. There's also a parking lot. We had a pole donated from DP&L, and we stuck another solar-powered light that is very similar to our street lighting on that pole, and it's about 25 feet in the air, so it illuminates a much larger area. And we're very thankful to Kelly for those purchases. It enhances our bike trail, and we'll see how that technology works out. And if it is a good proven technology, we will continue with that type of lighting throughout the rest of the bike path. So we want to thank her and her efforts and her team's efforts. I'm not going to list everyone, as I would forget someone, and I don't want to do that, but we'll give recognition to Hayla Kanapke, who is also our leader for Citizens for Safer Streets. When she found out about the opportunity to serve, she rallied her troops, and what we were able to, just a few things that we were able to accomplish besides the lighting. We painted underneath the East Main Street Bridge. Well, and not only underneath, but we painted the sides. And with that painting, we removed a lot of unsightly graffiti. And then as we were planning that particular area, we noticed that that area in particular is somewhat drab, boring. And we've had some further conversations, and we would like to see some small trees, as well as some planter boxes that would be easy to maintain along the bottom side, and then remove the dirt and actually do like a cobblestone concrete that would last much longer and require less maintenance than a large mulch bed or flower bed. So we're excited about that. We appreciate the street department getting on board. We had a couple members of our street department that volunteered their time on Saturday to help out the organizations and make sure that we got everything done. There was work done in all of our parks around the playground area. Mulch was put down and spread around and rejuvenated and ready for spring and ready for the folks to come and use our parks. So very appreciative of that. We would hope that this is a catalyst and that not only just the one day out of the year, but we would engage these groups or various citizens to become actively involved. There's nothing better when the community comes together to be a community, and that's really what took place this past weekend. So we thank them for their efforts and all that they contributed. With that, in front of you this evening, I have two rather large topics that I would like to cover this evening, as we have no legislation, so we'll dive into this and hopefully quickly, but we'll see how that goes. So the first thing we're going to talk about tonight is the 2019 City of Greenville Sidewalk Replacement Program. We've had various conversations with the administration and some members of council, and the comment has been made that why don't we need to do something with our dilapidated sidewalks. And researching the matter, in this packet at the back, I've included a sidewalk ordinance that is on the books for the City of Greenville. It's Ordinance 0101, so it was signed in January of 2001. And the particular ordinance outlined for the replacement and repair of sidewalks. And I don't want to go through that entire ordinance. You can do that after the meeting, and you can read the details. I would tell you that it parallels the Ohio Revised Code almost word for word, and what the repair and assessment process looks like. So after the meeting, if you would like to go through that, certainly you can do so. One of the first things that we wanted to look at in coming up with or devising this program, the first part of the ordinance, sidewalk ordinance that I referred to, stated that yearly the city should designate areas with questionable sidewalk, and we should focus on those particular areas. This year, well, actually next year, last year, let me back up. Last year, we paved 4th Street. This next year, not in 19, but in 20, the plan is to pave 3rd Street. And as we look at that area, it is a large area. And if you look at the map, that would include phase number 1, which that work would be completed in 2020, and that is shaded in yellow. And if council finds favor with this project, we would continue to move through to year number 2, year number 3, year number 4. So as you can see, we've kind of laid this out, and we have a 10-year plan that would encompass the entire city and get us on a path that we would repair and have our sidewalks in good condition. And then after 10 years, this process would complete or would restart. And hopefully after 10 years, going back and reassessing and looking, the impact would not be as great in 10 years as what it is right now. On what would be page number 3, you can see examples of what various sidewalks look like and areas that would need to be repaired. Areas that are not flat, areas that have deviation from one panel to the next of more of a ½ inch or more, areas that are broken or crumbled or deteriorated, an abrupt slope, which may be caused by a tree that was planted in the area that has caused damage to the infrastructure. In that case, not only should the sidewalk be replaced, but the tree should come down as to not cause a problem with the repaired sidewalk. And again, you can continue to read through page number 3 at your leisure, but it would be something that would be sent along with a letter to a homeowner stating, these are the reasons why you would need to repair your sidewalk. What we're looking at, again, is a program that would target or concentrate on a certain area. We would have that area evaluated, marked, measured. That data would then be converted to what's called a resolution of necessity. And I'm getting, if you would go to the 2019 sidewalk program timeline, which is towards the back. Looks like a flow chart similar to this. So in April of 2019, where we're at today, we would review this program. If we found favor or needed to have further conversation, we might schedule a work session for later this month. If this program again finds favor, we would employ Choice One Engineering to do a lot of the assessment work out in the field, doing the measuring, determining based upon the parameters what needs to be replaced. Like I said, they would compile that information, and then we would present that information back to council in May of 2019 in the form of a resolution of necessity. And that is the resolution that's needed to start the assessment process. If that resolution went through 3 readings and it was approved after the 3rd reading on June 19th, it would need to set for 30 days. In July or late July of 2019, once that resolution is approved, we would mail the resolution of necessity to the property owners in question, along with a description of the areas that needed to be replaced. There would be a square footage and pictures for each property showing them what they need to replace. That construction could then begin because the homeowners would have the opportunity to do the work themselves, and that work could start June of 2019. With this particular scenario, this would give a homeowner from July of 2019 to the spring of 2020 to repair the sidewalks in question. If the work was not done by, say, January of 2020, or whatever point we designate, we would then complete that work as a city project. An estimate would be created, and council would pass another ordinance or resolution that would assess those charges onto the property owner. The homeowners would given that notice. In August of 2020, the homeowners would have an opportunity to object. They would object directly to council if there was an objection. And so by 2020, September of 2020, council would approve the ordinance to assess, and then once that ordinance is passed, the auditor would submit that to the county auditor, and that would be put on their property taxes. And the county auditor, September is we're trying to make this all work out for the month of September, as the auditor, she always, when it comes to like mowing assessments or any other type of assessment that we make to the county, that is done in the month of September when council approves those assessments.
Now, would that be spread over time?
If you look through the sidewalk ordinance, repair ordinance, there is some discretion and there's some decisions that would have to be made. I believe it says up to 10 years, no more than 10 years. So the assessment could be less than that. The particular ordinance also calls for a 4% administrative fee on top of whatever the construction fees are to cover the in-house costs. Good question, thank you. Any other questions, comments? Talking about, and the reason I suggest that we would use choice one was telling Mr. Burkett just prior to the council meeting happenings of planning and zoning. We have a couple building additions that are going to be going on. We have the North Broadway project going on. We have the construction work at Wayne Hospital. We have one inspector in the planning and zoning department. And just internally, we do not feel to move this project forward in this kind of a time frame that we would do it and be able to do that adequately. So we have reached out to Choice One, and I have given you a copy of their estimate. And their estimate comes to $29,970. $11,720 of that would be spent this year. The replacement schedule, $9,940, that would most likely be done this year. And then the construction layout of $8,310, that's an estimate. We really don't know how many folks will complete the work themselves. If the more that do that, the less that number will be, and will be the less that the city will be responsible for next year. And so as that also leads me to the next point, if the city commits to this, then next year, monies would need to be appropriated to complete this project. And I cannot give you an estimate. One, I don't know how much repair work is out there other than to say a lot. But we would need to look at that, and then, I can give you a worst-case scenario if we decide to move forward with this. And once we have everything measured up, we can say, okay, here's the starting point. This is how much needs to be repaired. This is our engineer's estimate. Again, the more folks that do it themselves, the less that number would be in 2020.
And the homeowner, if they would do it themselves or have a contractor of their choice, they would have to all be done under the code, right?
Correct. They would need to get a permit from the Planning and Zoning Office, and we would do what we call pre-pour inspection, make sure their forms are set right, make sure they have the adequate gravel underneath.
Fourth Street project, Schweitzer curve there, that project is looking good. It really does look good. Great improvement.
Thanks. And to make a comparison, and I would tell you that if we move forward with this program, there are going to be a lot of trees that come down, because there are a lot of big trees that are causing a lot of damage to the sidewalks and to curbs. There will be some trees that will stay. We're not just going to take down trees to take down trees. They need to be impacting the infrastructure. But the hope would be that we restore some of our other neighborhoods to, obviously not everything's going to be new, but it would be restored to a condition that's very similar to what we see on 4 Schweitzer Street, after a street has been paved. That would be our goal.
We're still gonna have to put a tree up, another tree in, when they take one out.
Off of the approved tree list. Now, there's also another ordinance that says when the city has a project like this and the funds are available, the city will pay $250 of any tree that's planted in the right-of-way. But again, there's the caveat that the funds have to be available.
It's a good project. It's long overdue.
How would you like to move this if you find favor with this project, how would you like to move it forward? Because I believe the first step would be to have legislation at the next meeting to employ Choice One Engineering to do the work.
I think we should move forward with that.
Well, this timeline you have proposed here, get a hold of the thing. Of course, we have no more scheduled meetings in April. So all of a sudden, now we're into May. And
I will admit, when when Nancy did that timeline for me today, she was just copying off of a paper that I wrote down. When we had our first meeting about this with the mayor and Chad, and actually Choice One came down, was not anticipating being able to have this lengthy of a discussion this evening about this topic. So if council feels that a work session is warranted, I'm not sure how much, without actually going out and doing field work, I'm not sure how much more information I would actually be able to present to council. So I'm not sure how you feel about the.
I think we need to get started on it. There's a lot of sidewalks.
You had a question? Mr.
No, I just said, I agree with Kurt. I mean, unless we got more information regarding what actually needs to be done and how much and all that, probably a work session wouldn't be all that called for, I wouldn't think.
I just think it behooves council to really get a handle on this so that you know what you're voting for and you know what all is involved in this. It's pretty involved, and something that I suggested we just do from by the seat of our pants, we do it correctly.
Well, I think it's pretty well thought out what you've come up with here, and, you know, it's an ambitious program, but it's over 10 years, you know what I mean? And it's something that needs to be done. I mean, there's no question about it, and our infrastructure is probably our number one asset that we have, and we need to take care of it. I mean, it's first impressions, you know, I mean, when you talk about getting new businesses in town and people moving into town and they see sidewalks that are nice or they see sidewalks that aren't so nice, that could make the decision on what they do. But I mean, nothing to be taken lightly at the same time. We need to know exactly what we're doing. But it's
going to be hard to get too much more information because if we're not going to do it, Choice One will be doing it. And if you want to get going, we need to decide whether we're going to appropriate and vote on the amount of money they need to do the work. That's the only way we're going to find out the information, how much that's all going to cost.
yeah.
Yeah, it's, you know, it's a tough decision, but it's, I don't know. It's just something that I feel we need to get going on too.
What do you see?
Sooner or later.
I really haven't lived in Greenville all that long, so what do you see as the likelihood of people, you know, when they know that this program's underway, of actually doing it on their own?
It's like 4 Schweitzer Street, you know, you go down and you repair a street, you put in new sidewalks, you put in new curb. Now all of a sudden you see folks fixing up the fronts of their
Right.
homes. Not all of them, but
There are those that
they're
will.
doing things to the front of their home to make it nice. I believe that this is a program would be a catalyst, much in the same manner.
That's kind of what I think too.
When you're Fourth and Schweitzer, that was part of the project with all the sidewalks, right?
That is correct.
And that's not going to be on this.
But we're not we're not going to a property owner and saying, you have to replace all of your sidewalk. We're going out and evaluating sidewalk that looks very similar to what you saw in that picture on page 2.
Well, I've seen some sidewalks that's all the way in front of the house plus the neighbor's house. It's like that.
Yeah, and there may be some that is all in front of your sidewalk. There may be others that it's just 1 or 2 panels. It may be a vacant lot that used to have sidewalk on one side of it, and now it's covered in grass. It's going to need to go back to sidewalk.
And this is just for replacement or repair of sidewalks that are there. We're
Existing
not,
sidewalks.
yeah, we're not going to try to make anybody put in new sidewalks.
Right.
That's not what it's about.
So when the area of Gardenwood comes up, the intent is not to go to Gardenwood folks and say, you have to put sidewalks in and we're going to assess it. We've been down that road.
One thing that I think would help maybe us and even the public as we share would be a little better map that shows a little bit more of the streets.
Well, when we have if we move forward with it, we'll designate that area. It was hard to get all of that information on an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. Yeah, it's a big map. It's actually printed, it's in planning and zoning right now.
Yeah.
I just knew you couldn't see it
Right.
on an easel, so I didn't bother.
So we are hiring Choice One to do the assessment of the walks.
They're not doing, they are assessing the condition of, based on our parameters.
Okay,
So I just want to, and I clarified the condition of, they're not taking care of the paperwork, or, it'll be up to council to pass ordinances, and they'll just provide the data that will be inserted into the various ordinances that council will pass.
What was their cost? Choice One's cost?
29,970.
30,000.
according to this timeline, this is like to start in July. And can they get that all assessed and everything done in that length of time?
Absolutely, yeah.
Because it seems like we're just kind of rushed into it here all of a sudden. But, and as I said, April's about going, so. And I don't know what we run into a little later on when we start getting into May and June and vacation times, and we have enough council people, to get stuff passed in a timely manner. Is that going to throw things behind? So.
We've given, this particular timeline, a lot of communities, and I think Mr. Hindley can attest that when you go out and they get their sidewalk marked, they've got 30 days to get the work done. This timeline, if things move along, we're giving a property owner 6 months to get it done, and we won't do the work until next year.
That's what we'll do with what hasn't been done by the homeowner, right?
Correct.
I think we should move along.
I think we should move along also.
I agree, we should get Choice One, start on the project.
This is under the limit that it doesn't have to be bid out on the Choice One.
Correct.
Okay. So we would need to do what? Just give you permission to have the
We would have legislation at the next meeting, yeah.
legislation prepared for the first meeting in May. And then we can go from there. And again, I encourage you all to look this over pretty carefully. There's quite a bit of stuff here. Any other comments from members of council? Are you comfortable with having the legislation prepared then?
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, all right, let's proceed that way.
Okay. The particular, the sidewalk project, when we talk about assessments, there's 2 different ways that work can be assessed. You can use ORC 729 or ORC 727. 729, the caveat is that it allows the property owner to do the work. With ORC 727, the city deems the project, says that the city will complete the project to its specs, it'll bid it out, it'll be responsible for it. And then at the end of the project, provided that we've followed all of the rules within 727, which are quite extensive, then the cost of that construction can be assessed onto the property owner. Last year, when we had a conversation about upcoming projects, one of the projects that council approved choice one, and myself, the administration, to move forward with, was the widening of Wagner Avenue. And we've been working on that project, and we're ready to make a presentation to council. I understand that the drawing that I gave to you, this is in its draft form, but you can't really read it, but you can get an idea of what we want to do. And then at the bottom of the drawing is the widening details. And that's what is really most important this evening, are the details of the project. When we presented this project, it was presented as a 5-lane project with curb and sidewalk on both sides. As a 5-lane would continue what is existing as far as in front of Lowe's, Walmart. It would continue that 5-lane on out to Children's Home Bradford Road. When we got into the design and started taking a hard look at the area that we had to work with, a 5-lane road with curb and sidewalk on both sides will fit within the existing right-of-way. However, there is somewhat problematic on the backside of sidewalk for grading. It works if everything is flat, and it's not flat. So we evaluated the project and looked at some design standards, and the average ADT right now is around 4,500 cars per day travel that road. The anticipated long-term average daily travel based upon development in that area goes up to about, not quite, but we'll round up to 6,000 cars a day. ODOT guidelines for a 5-lane road, which has 2 lanes each direction and a center turn lane, is between 18 and 20,000 cars. We do not see, it would have to be a very significant development in that area to increase our daily travel from 4,000 to 18,000.
Excuse me, when was that study done?
I couldn't give you the exact date. Those are ODOT numbers. Those numbers are provided by ODOT.
I mean, no idea when they were taken?
I want to say fairly recently. I cannot give you the exact year and date. I would tell you that probably within the last 5 years those numbers were taken. Russ and Wagner is the busiest intersection in Darke County, but there's not a lot of northbound travel. Most of the traffic that is at Russ and Wagner comes into Greenville. It goes south. So in looking at the average ADT and the right-of-way that we have to work with, we've designed a road that has 3 lanes. It would be much similar to Russ Road between Wagner and 118. It has 1 lane each direction and a center turn lane. That's less pavement that we have to maintain. And we believe that that would be sufficient for the ADT. We also believe that in the future, if development mandated, and again, I cannot fathom what would increase that amount of traffic. A drop turn lane could be put in on either side. One of the lessons that we've learned over time, especially with Wagner Avenue, is to limit the number of accesses, that we should limit the number of accesses onto Wagner. We don't want to end up with Wendy's, Domino's, Chase Bank, where we have multiple accesses just a few hundred feet apart, if that. We should limit our accesses. We should have drives that go off of Wagner back into whatever the development might be. And by doing that, we can alleviate a lot of the problems that we currently have on Wagner. There may in the future at some point be the addition of a traffic light, which could also help with the traffic maintenance in that particular area. So we have the preliminary design. We're talking about 3 12-foot lanes, an 18-inch curb and gutter, a 4-foot grass shoulder, we call that the green strip, the barrier, and a 5-foot sidewalk. The sidewalk would go all the way down to, at least on the east side, would include our detention pond, and it would wrap around and tie into the sidewalks at Koenig, as that is, detention pond is city-owned. So we would complete that sidewalk loop. And then we would just have sidewalks on the west side that would go down to Mrs. Nisonger's property, but not included in that property, which is the corner where the schoolhouse is at.
How many cars go down Russ Road between Wagner and 121 a day?
It was like 14,000,
Bunch?
bunch, a lot.
Well, it's gonna be skewed now simply because of
The
the Broadway.
Broadway detour.
And that's really,
Those are ODOT publishes that on their website, the travel.
Because most of that out there on Russ between Wagner, that's 5 lanes, right?
Between Wagner and 121 is, and then when you go from Wagner to 118, it's down to 3.
So it's 3 lanes going the other way.
Correct.
This also puts less burden on the property owners, also, they don't get assessed so much. Assessed.
So when we talk about those assessment costs, one of the other things that, well, let me get into, one of the other things that we would like to do in that particular area that's been talked about is, and we've seen it on 4 Schweitzer, or at least on 4th Street with the decorative lighting, is to maybe include lighting that is similar to that. So we're looking at and that's what you see at the bottom, we're looking at a total job of 1.8 million, just a little over 1.8 million. Of that 1.8 million, with the street lighting assessments, $1,562,708 would be assessed of that total cost. That would leave a balance of $253,149.30, $253,149.30. That would be left as the city share. And as we talked about when we talked about this project at its inception, the property owner assessments would make the loan payment for about the first 21 years, and then the last 9 to 10 years would be the city's portion, with the anticipation that in 20 years, that area is going to be developed, generating tax revenue, generating income tax and property tax revenue, that $200,000 would not be a burden on the city 20 years from now. And Ohio Public Works has approved us for a 1.9 million, 0% interest loan.
How long?
30 years.
you say the Ohio Public Works?
Ohio Public Works Commission, that was our application last August. That was approved.
How long do we have to
The
take
money
advantage of that?
The money will be released July 1
Okay.
with the state, beginning of the state fiscal year. But much like the process that I discussed with the sidewalk replacement, our next step would be to continue in this construction process, and we have a good idea of what the numbers are going to be, but then we would provide the data that council would move forward with the resolution of necessity as per the requirements of the job assessment process. That would be our next step if council wishes to continue moving forward with this project.
Now, the roadway that's there, would it be torn up or just added to?
The existing pavement will be
Right.
milled,
Okay,
planed,
okay.
road will be widened on each side, and then new surface course will go down.
There are a couple places, if I recall correctly, north Russ Road intersection on the northbound side
Old Bob Evans, yeah.
that are pretty soft, like it really, just milling won't fix that. It's got,
Yeah,
it has to
it's
be really-
definitely what we label as base failure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that-
With what we're doing here, we're not coming, we need to address that, don't get me wrong. We need to go out with more than just a mill and take care of that area. But this particular project comes, as far as the resurfacing portion, comes back to the stoplight at least. Kroger, Walmart, that particular stoplight. And then we'll repave all the way out to Children's Home.
Have you guys talked to the property owners out there on Russ and showed them this new?
That would be the next conversation that, before we just send letters, that we would have a public meeting and invite all the property owners and go through the drawings and the process and garner their input. And
Yeah, because it was first time 5 lanes, right?
right,
With curb, gutter, sidewalks.
correct. And you know, and if you recall, I mean, we based 1.9 million off of the 5 lanes. And you may question, well, if we're going to 3 lanes, why did the price only come down to, without the lighting, 1.5 million? The reason for that is that a majority of your costs are still there. Your curb costs are still there. Your sidewalk costs are still there. Your stormwater infrastructure costs are still there. So there's, you know, the saving isn't as significant as what it may appear, but a lot of the costs are still involved in the project.
When President Burkert was talking about the soft spots or the base failure, you mentioned coming back to Lease Way there, East Avenue. And I'm thinking he said that there where the old Bob Evans was is where the failure seems to be. We're not coming back onto that?
No, I mean, the area in question around the Bob Evans is, worst case, 20 foot by 20 foot. 2 lanes wide.
Okay.
So it's a matter of going to that particular area, digging it out, doing what you need to do to stabilize the base, and repaving.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty localized. It's not all up and down the highway.
When all that was built, we're finding that they basically laid a lot of asphalt on top of dirt. So they didn't dig it out, put stone down, and nowadays, we'll dig it all out, we'll put coarse stone down, then a much finer stone, we'll compact it with a big roller, and then we'll put asphalt on top of it. Well, in the day, they dug it out, and they just laid asphalt. So if the soil was bad, what happens. I mean,
Right.
you have that failure in the soil, and you get that damage to the asphalt. So until you dig it down and dig out some of the soil, put in some stone,
And replace.
you won't fix it. It doesn't matter how many times you mill it and pave it. The area in front of Burger King is another example of that, so.
So what are you requesting, to have some legislation prepared?
If we're ready to, if this is what we want to move forward with,
Council want to review that a little more?
we'll put together the numbers for the resolution of necessity. When that's done, we would schedule a public meeting, have the public meeting, then after the public meeting, if council wants to entertain that resolution of necessity, that would get that's how we would move
So
forward.
you have the public meeting before you do the resolution of necessity.
It would allow the public to
Give some,
give some input that might affect a decision on how
Right.
they choose to move forward.
sure.
That would give us a lot of time to consider what President Burkett's talking about, you know, not just jumping into something, but we're gonna have time to hash this over a bit before we actually pass something. I'm for moving on.
Me too, I think we should move forward with the project.
Absolutely opposed? Move
Not
it.
yet.
Not yet. You see what's going on?
Yeah, yeah.
Not yet.
We're just moving on. Move forward, see what happens.
Thank you for indulging. Mr. Council President, I will pass.
You owe us big time.
About time.
Thank you. Appreciate it very much. Law Director, Mr. Brand, wake up. Oh, and City Auditor, Mrs. Wilbur.
Thank you, Mr. Council President. Just wanted to advise everybody that we are starting on our 2020 budget process. The department heads will be turning in their budget proposals the first week of May, and the process will be moving along pretty swiftly after that. And just to let you know, we have to turn in our budget to the county by mid-July, so it's going to come up pretty quickly. So
Okay.
just wanted to let you know it's starting already.
Wow.
So, and with that, Mr. Council President, I will pass.
Thank you. Well, fun time was had by all, I guess. Wow, looking at 2020 already. Nothing under committee reports, and we have one ordinance to consider. Supplemental appropriations.
An ordinance to make additional appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Greenville, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019. This ordinance authorizes appropriations to the General Fund for Crime Investigation, FOJ, in the amount of $5,000. These funds are needed to replenish the account. To CIP transfer elect auditor and treasurer in the amount of $2,048,050. These funds are needed to transfer to the CIP fund for 2019 CIP projects. Community Funds Council in the amount of $82,761. These funds are needed to pay the community fund request, which has been approved by council. And to the CDBG fund for transfers CDBG in the amount of 36 cents. These funds are needed to close the CDBG account. To the Park Fund for Equipment Maintenance Park in the amount of $8,615.39. These funds represent the insurance proceeds from wind and tree damage to Shelter House Number 9. And to the CIP Fund for General Government New Equipment Infrastructure CIP in the amount of $60,000. Fire New Equipment CIP in the amount of $169,041.91. Street New Equipment CIP in the amount of $164,000. Park New Equipment CIP in the amount of $50,000. And Roadway Enhancement CIP in the amount of $1,605,008.09. These funds are needed for the approved 2019 CIP projects.
Move to suspend the rules, give this ordinance second and third reading by title only.
Motion by Mr. Rogers to suspend the rules, reading the ordinance by title, second, third time. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Wright?
Yes.
Godwin?
Yes.
Hensley?
Yes.
Hottishell?
Yes.
Rogers?
Yes.
Whitaker?
Yes.
An ordinance to make additional appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Greenville, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019. An ordinance to make additional appropriations for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Greenville, State of Ohio during the fiscal year ending December 31st, 2019.
Move to adopt this ordinance?
Motion by Mrs. Howdishell to adopt the ordinance. Discussion. Call the roll, please.
Wright?
Yes.
Godwin?
Yes.
Hensley?
Yes.
Hottishell?
Yes.
Rogers?
Yes.
Whitaker?
Yes.
That's pretty good. Just one to consider tonight. Nothing under old business. Under new business, we have the legal permit issue.
A letter dated April 11th, 2019 was received from Chief Strick. I have reviewed the list of liquor permit holders which you have provided to me. I currently have no objections to the renewal of any liquor permits within the City of Greenville. If you have any questions, please contact me, Chief Steve Strick.
Now, we have a option to not request a hearing, or that's it, right?
If we don't object.
If we don't object to it. This is the annual review of all liquor permits. This is just not a single. So, I'd entertain a motion to do something here.
Motion to
Not request a hearing.
not request a hearing. on the
Motion by Mr. Hensley to not request a hearing on any of these renewals. Discussion. Call the roll.
Wright?
Yes.
Godwin?
Yes.
Hensley?
Yes.
Hottishell?
Yes.
Rogers?
Yes.
Whitaker?
Yes.
Okay. Another item that we must take care of tonight, and then so you don't all forget, put a little note in your back pocket or something, our annual joint meeting with the Greenville Township trustees regarding the appointment of a person to fill in on the Greenville Union Cemetery Board. Is going to be the first meeting in May, which will be May the 7th. That'll be at 7 p.m. here. That'll involve all the council members plus the 3 township trustees. And we have to, a township trustee to the Union Cemetery Board for a 3-year term. Okay? So, please make note that that meeting has been set. And again, it's 7 o'clock. Okay.
I move to accept all the absences for April.
Motion by Mrs. Howneshell to approve the absences for the month of April. Discussion. Call roll.
Wright?
Yes.
Godwin?
Yes.
Hensley?
Yes.
Hottishell?
Yes.
Rogers?
Yes.
Whitaker?
Yes.
Seeing nothing further, communications. What do we have? And a bunch of stuff.
Monthly reports were received from the fire department and street department. A quarterly report was received from the fire department. And a notice was received that there will be a Greenville Transit Advisory Committee meeting on Wednesday, May 22nd at 3 p.m. at the transit facility. These reports and notice have been distributed to council.
Okay. Wednesday, the 22nd, you say? Okay. Pardon me. Any other items of communication? No, seeing none, we'll call down the council, please.
Mr. Wright?
How is the roadway project going?
It's going.
Any problems?
No.
Sure.
Construction project, I mean,
I think you're doing real good.
there's daily issues that we work through, but to say that I foresee problems as things that bring you to a screeching construction halt, and that's just not the case. I mean, we're moving forward with everything. We've got 3 different crews out there working, communicating with the various businesses as best we can to get their people in and out. And at this point, we're still on schedule. The weather's cooperating, so it's going well.
It's good. I'll pass.
Mr. Godwin?
Just want to say that tomorrow, the VFW at 7 o'clock is the Citizens for Safer Streets. Tomorrow at 7 o'clock. And, they did a good job this weekend. Seen a lot of stuff that Mr. Birkin ain't gonna like, but it was on Facebook, the project they were doing. And, they were on Facebook.
So,
Pictures.
What's that have to do with me, sir? I don't understand.
The internet. You don't like the internet that well, but.
That's not your decision whether I like the internet or not, sir.
All right. Well, excuse me for that, but.
Thank you.
But they did a good job this weekend, and with that, I'll pass.
Mr. Hensley?
I got a call here last week wanting to know about what we were doing with all the homeless people that was roaming the streets of Greenville. And I said, where in the world did you hear this? Well, they saw it on the internet. And I said, well, if it's on the internet, it's got to be true. So I'm on the Community Action Partnership Advisory Board, not as a representative of council, but as a private citizen. And each year, the federal government mandates a program called a point in time. They pick that point in time, and they pick January. And the job is to go and try to locate any homeless people in the county. And the members of the CAP and volunteers, they go and check under bridges and anywhere that anybody thinks that there may be homeless people. Well, they found this year 17 homeless people. There was people in the emergency shelter, there was people in the St. Patrick's home, and there was people in the domestic violence shelter. All people that was found to be homeless was sheltered. There was no one found that was unsheltered. Now, that's not saying that there may or may not be somebody out there that's unsheltered, but we do have emergency shelters. We do have services. CAP does. If the emergency shelter is full, they have funds to house them elsewhere. So there should be no hundreds of homeless people meandering around the city. Grace Resurrection Community Center, if they come there, two of the people actually were people that had come to Grace Resurrection Community Center, and the CAP came and interviewed them and found out that they were actually living at St. Patrick's home. So I just want to reassure everybody that we do have services in place to try to address anyone in need. They just have to make themselves available to us. And with that, I will pass.
Mrs. Haddishell?
I'd like to wish everybody a happy Easter and be safe out there, because there will be a lot of bunnies out there. And be careful of the motorcycles, because it is getting warm weather out there. A very dear friend of mine was the one that was hit out there on 121 last week, and he's still in the hospital. So please beware of the motorcycles. And with that, I pass.
Mr. Rogers?
I have to echo the same thing since I ride motorcycles. You know, watch out for us. I know it's the time of the year whenever people aren't used to us being out there yet. And so just beware, and hopefully the motorcyclists that's out there are also aware of the four-wheel traffic and et cetera, and use courtesy in that respect also. With that, I pass.
Mr. Whitaker?
I want to thank those that showed up this evening and came to the city council meeting and find out what's going on, and I appreciate you being here. I want to thank all those that participated in the cleanup efforts in the park and so forth, and all their efforts. And again, I want to echo Mr. Godwin's acknowledgement of the meeting tomorrow night for Citizens for Safer Streets at 7 o'clock. That is a group that's really picking up some steam in what's going on and their concerns for the community, and I'd like to invite anybody that feels like it'd be a worthwhile thing to do is to come out to the meeting at 7 o'clock at the VFW. So with that, I pass.
President Burkett?
Mr. Garrison,
Sir.
don't mean to put you on the spot, but the other day I received in the mail a letter from Vectren telling me that my service from, what's the company that we deal with?
Constellation.
Constellation.
I apologize, I have a big long spiel printed out in my desk.
Well, I just thought about it, so.
Well, thank you.
I'll relinquish some time so you can explain it much better than I, sir.
Thank you. Sorry that I left that downstairs. I was concerned with these other two projects. But a while ago, City Council passed the ordinance and the voters approved the aggregation process. And when it comes to natural gas and aggregation, natural gas contracts are only good for 2 years. The contract with Constellation will expire, I believe, at the end of May. Should have been the way your letter read. At that point of expiration, the aggregation opt-out process starts all over. So it does not matter where you were at prior to, the process starts over. So if you are eligible to participate in the aggregation, and the way that you're eligible to participate in the aggregation is that you have not signed up for another gas supplier, you will automatically be opted in to the new supplier's price. And anyone that's read that letter, help me out with the new supplier's name. Anybody remember?
Forgot. Sure.
DSS, let's see.
No.
you know.
Well, then there's a new supplier, and that new supplier hasn't won the contract for the city of Greenville and the other municipalities. I believe it's about 3.2 cents per unit for the natural gas. If you want to partake or participate in that, you need to do nothing. If you would like to use Vectron's going rate, then you would opt out of the program. If you would like to explore the internet and try to find a better deal or a situation or a contract that's better suited for your needs, you may do so. You just need to opt out. As with any part of the aggregation, you can opt in or opt out at any time with no penalty. Now, that has nothing to do with a private contract that you may choose to enter into. You choose to enter into your own private contract, then you would follow the terms of that particular contract. So if you were opted in prior to and you were comfortable with that rate, you would want to opt into this new contract as the rate is even lower. So that's where we're at with the natural gas aggregation and why this aggravation is going on.
Yeah, it's kind of confusing. You know, you get a thing from Vectron and saying that your program's been dropped, and of course they probably purposefully don't tell you everything, and so you begin to panic. It's like, who do I need to call and what? And then there's, you know, you get into additional charges and all that kind of thing. So I wanted to make sure that people understood that. And if you have any further questions, you can call in
Call into the mayor's office, talk to Nancy. She
Nancy's got it
has the
down.
program down pat, and she will do her best to explain it to you. I did my own investigation, and I'll let others do their investigation, but I would tell you that in doing your comparison, if you're not sure of what Vectron's rate is, you can do research through the state of Ohio on the internet, and you can find out what Vectron's going rate, what it is. And it was my conclusion that this new offering is, especially in the winter months when the gas prices really go up, it is a much better deal.
So the bottom line is, if you want to stay in, you do nothing.
Correct.
Receiving
You
this-
do not have to do anything, and you will automatically go under the new city aggregation contract. That's the best way to summarize
I
it.
just received a letter today.
Yes.
So all we're doing is changing names.
Changing suppliers.
Yep.
Somebody got the new contract for a better price.
Great. Okay, thank you. I appreciate that, and I knew that you were thinking about that, was going to say something, and that I made a note to myself. I gotta
Thank you. Thank you
mention
for that
that.
opportunity.
All right, I'd like to thank y'all for coming. I can't think of anything else that we need to have a safe Easter weekend. It's going to be busy, so be careful and enjoy the time with hopefully family.
Move to adjourn?
Motion by Mrs. Howdeshell to adjourn. Call the roll, please.
Wright,
Yes.
Godwin,
Yes.
Hensley,
Yes.
Howdeshell,
Yes.
Rogers.
Yes.
Whitaker.
Yes.
Thank you.
Couldn't do it. Nobody speak faster.
Turn that over to Mayor.
That is too.
I learned from Tracy.
Yeah.
Right on the stick.
Hey, Jesse?
I tried that in school. Didn't work.
Oh, yes.
He tried to move to adjourn.
Isn't it like
I asked
Yeah.
Gary,
volunteer,
did you get a
something like that?
communication from the National History Museum?